If there was ever a default reason for why a professional wrestler decides to go bad, it would have to be the infamous "you people" heel turn, where the wrestler blames the audience as the reason for why they decided to turn to the dark side. But as cliche as this might be, the really interesting thing is, sometimes it's pretty appropriate. And that's the topic of this episode. Because today, a big thank you to all of my wonderful Patreon supporters such as Inigo Montoya, Dakari Garment, and Rodney Harris. Thank all of you for the support, as it really does mean a lot. Heels that are so popular with fans that they just have to be turned babyface is something that we tend to talk about a lot, but the reverse doesn't seem to be brought up nearly as much, even though arguably it might just be more impressive, especially since a lot of us feel that WWE doesn't listen to its fans. And so, this list is going to be looking at wrestlers that for one reason or another were turned heel as a result of fan reactions, and not only that, but it also turned out to be for the best. Now, before we get into the list, I just want to ask, please make sure that you're subscribed to this channel, as it really does help, and if you could, leave a like. And also, an extra thank you to all my awesome Patreon supporters who are still helping to keep this channel going. It really does mean a lot. Thank you. Now, on with the episode. We might as well begin things with an obvious one, and it's one that might just be the greatest heel turn of all time. Let's start this list off with Hulk Hogan. At Bash at the Beach 1996, when Hulk Hogan turned heel in WCW, he blamed not only the fans but also WCW for not appreciating his drawing power and all he's contributed to the industry, a sentiment that he would echo yet again once he returned to the WWF, which prompted The Rock to come out and say that the people believed in Hogan and it was him who had changed and not the fans. But as we would go on to find out in 2002, Hogan was still very much over with the WWE audience. Although the same could not be said for 1996 WCW, where, if you remember, before the heel turn, Hogan wasn't really on TV all that much, as the fans were beginning to get disenfranchised with the whole Hulkamania superhero gimmick, which of course led to one of the biggest shots in the arm that any career has ever seen. And so, while The Rock might have had a point when it came to the people back in WCW, Hogan wasn't wrong that the fans' attitude towards him had changed, viewing Hulk Hogan as corny despite everything that he contributed to professional wrestling. Oh, but speaking of The Rock, while The Rock and Hogan did face off against each other at WrestleMania 18, it turns out they do have another parallel that happened just 6 years earlier. Just like Hogan would learn, back in 1996, The Rock would discover the hard way that being a squeaky clean smiley babyface really doesn't get you over with fans. Now unfortunately, those exact fans were not subtle about their feelings. Flash forward 2 years, one heel turn and one Nation of Domination run into the future, we would find The Rock yet again as a babyface, but this time he was quite well received with audiences. However, this would not last, as later in the year when The Rock would win his first WWF World Heavyweight Championship, he would do it by screwing over Mick Foley and revealing that he was in line with Vince McMahon the entire time. And true to form, as soon as this happened, the fans were very vocal yet again about their disapproval of The Rock, by chanting "Rocky sucks," to which the now corporate champion replied that he never forgot that, teaching us that we all have to be careful about who we boo, because you never know when you might be making your next monster. Not only that, but just a few years later and the whole process would repeat again after The Rock left for Hollywood, with many fans feeling deserted by the former People's Champion. And the hits just keep on coming. What can I say? A lot of the 90s was really all about deconstructing your heroes. Superman got Doomsdayed, Batman got Baned, and Spider-Man got Ben Riley'd. And on top of that, professional wrestling was not exempt of this either, as we already discussed Hulk Hogan, but also there was Bret the Hitman Hart. Before the famous double turn at WrestleMania 13 involving Stone Cold Steve Austin, Bret had slowly begun to show that he was getting frustrated with the WWF and the WWF audience, which was only exacerbated when Stone Cold Steve Austin referred to Bret as a crybaby, and a lot of fans at the time agreed with him. And so, while their feud took place, Austin was playing the part of a traditional heel while Bret was playing the role of a traditional babyface. But because of that radical 90s audience, the two would end up switching places. But then again, depending on where you live, you might not consider Bret's anti-America heel run to be a heel run at all. Okay, allow me to start this entry by saying that I do not think that the Montreal Screwjob is the sole reason why Vince McMahon turned heel, as I did cover in a previous episode. But at the same time, I'll admit, it really didn't help. With the rebellious attitude of the 90s, combating anything seen as an authority figure was considered cool. And going back to 1996, WWF was slowly beginning to reveal Vince McMahon as the true owner of the World Wrestling Federation. And the more in charge Vince was on screen, the more he began to get a mixed reaction from fans. This of course continued all the way until his feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin officially began, with the Texas Rattlesnake being the perfect foil for the head of the corporation. And so, with the public ready to fight the power, Vince McMahon became the perfect person to target all of that WWF attitude towards. But then again, if you consider the event of Black Saturday, there might have been some wrestling fans out there booing Vince McMahon before it was cool. Alright, allow me to start by saying that I do think it's possible to have a face Miz be over. I don't think it's easy, but I think it's possible. Both times that The Miz turned babyface, it didn't last very long at all. Not surprising, since his smarmy attitude just makes him so easy to boo. Now the first time, for some reason, they thought picking up the mantle from Ric Flair would finally get him over as a face, even though The Miz is definitely not on Flair's level, and also Flair is the dirtiest player in the game. At any rate, no one was shocked to see that The Miz couldn't live up to this, and his first babyface run came to an end rather quickly. This was eventually followed up just a little while ago, where The Miz was also a babyface yet one more time, which again fizzled out pretty much as soon as it began. Now, the thing is, between his promo on Talking Smack as well as the ovation he got when he was making fun of John Cena ahead of their mixed tag match at WrestleMania, it shows that The Miz is capable of getting over. However, his best reactions tend to be when he's going after somebody that the fans don't really care for in the first place. And that's what I think the key would be to having The Miz get a successful face run. But every time they do it, it just feels so forced, as he's trying to be something that he's not, instead of just letting him use his natural ability towards the right people, which is why every time they turn a face, the fans just end up making him go heel right back again. And so, even though I do feel that a babyface Miz is possible, I will also admit that there are so many more fans out there who feel that he should have been a career heel. And so, you gotta give the people what they want. Alright, now I have to say that I really miss the hugger Bayley, and I really want her to come back soon. Ever since she was moved up to the main roster, the WWE failed to capture the same exact momentum that she had in NXT, where she was the lovable underdog. Now, I've already talked about this in a prior episode, but the reality is that the main roster creative just never got her. And when the writing team doesn't know how to take you, it's also a safe bet that neither will the main roster fans. And so, armed with improper presentation, not to mention a horrible This Is Your Life segment, many fans began to find Bayley annoying, thus making her eventual heel turn inevitable. And while she did find a lot of success ever since she turned heel, it doesn't change that this all happened because the fans just couldn't embrace probably the most endearing wrestler that NXT has ever produced. And to make matters worse, there are a lot of fans out there who never got to see the magic that the real Bayley had to deliver. And lastly, of course, we have the head of the table, the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. Making sure not to repeat the same mistake that they did with John Cena, Roman Reigns knew that going heel would be the best possible option for him and his character. And he was right. With the fans booing him anyway, it just made a whole lot of sense for him to turn heel. And one of the interesting parts about all this is that allegedly, one of the reasons why WWE never had John Cena break bad was because they were worried about losing merchandise sales. However, after Roman's turn, that proved to be nothing to worry about, as the tribal chief is still one of the biggest moneymakers for the company, thus proving that WWE really had a missed opportunity when it came to the doctor of thugonomics. Well, there you go. 7 times that wrestlers turned heel because of the WWE audience. But what are some other examples you could think of? Let me know down in the comments, and please make sure that you're subscribed to this channel and that your notifications are working. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all my amazing Patreon supporters who really do help to keep this channel going. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, Dave knows.